Happy Monday, everybody. Rob Mazak here. I am a psychic medium and I talk about a lot of different things. Today I'm going to kind of mix it up with the metaphysical, spiritual, scientific, kind of mash it all together. The reason I wanted to do this podcast, it all started with noticing the enormous amount of arguments on posts in Facebook and other social media platforms between the globe earth people and the flat earth people. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth, and everybody's calling them globe turds and, flat earth hit. I don't know, just all these strange names, just bantering back and forth. And what seems to be happening, and what came to mind, the reason I want to talk about these things, is many of us believe in things that we simply can't see. Many, many things are in the invisible. And when you argue about things that you can't literally see or experience or even prove, I'm not sure what the point is. I guess it's ego, pride, stupidity, ignorance, I don't know. I've gone on some of those chats and I've even written stories about this stuff. That really, unless you have a tremendous amount of money and the legal ability to actually create a ship, commandeer a ship, make a ship, buy a ship, take it up high enough to actually see what's going on, there's no point in arguing. Many of these people are using things like math and science and geometry, a lot of different things to try to prove their point. However, even those things that are scientific and are math and all these things are really created by men and are really something that doesn't even exist either. So let me back up on that. Let me kind of step back on that. Most of what we have accepted as truths about space, if you will, the fact that we're spinning on a globe and on, hurtling through space at these tremendous speeds. Sun is 93 million miles away, moon is 230 some odd thousand miles away. Most of that was originally proven through equations, math equations. Now you guys might think that that is solid proof. Let's think about that for a second. If our alphabets and our languages are created by someone or some people, some groups of people, then why aren't numbers, letters, languages, numbers are really all things that we have created or were taught to us humans by some other entities, if you will. Let's look at numbers for a second. Numbers are really cool. They do help with a lot of things: engineering, aircraft, flight, manufacturing, all kinds of things. They're very, very, very helpful to have numbers and equations and all these fancy math paradigms, if you will. Let's think about numbers. Numbers are simply characters, things that are on a piece of paper, in an email, on a computer, on a calculator. Do numbers really actually exist? And if they do, where do they exist? If you see them on your computer, does that mean they're real? Or does that just mean that there's some kind of useful tool that we can have to help us measure our life on this planet? My thought is that numbers really don't exist. And you might think, well, it's sitting there on my calculator, sitting there on my computer. Well, let's use a computer as an example. I'm here watching my podcast to make sure that, I'm not talking too loud or whatever. And at the bottom, I can see the time running. And there's numbers, right? And when this is all said and done, there'll be a final number. But where do those numbers actually exist? Or do they exist? And you might think, well, the computer has it. Sure. How does a computer store data? By multiple patterns of ones and zeros, on and off, in just an amazing amount of different combinations. And I imagine that quantum computers and the like, I've done a little bit of research on that, actually superimpose ones and zeros, and that just makes another astronomically amount of possibilities. Once again, I ask you, do numbers actually exist? They only exist in the form that you can see them on your screen, but only on the screen. In the storage of that computer, they're all ones and zeros, etched into the hard drive or the RAM or whatever is doing your storage on your computer. I mean, I'm fairly good with computers, but I'm not an expert, okay? But only on the screen. Very much like let's take the internet, for example. On your computer, there's pictures, videos, sound, all kinds of things are happening on the screen of your computer that you download from the internet. But you know what? The only time that those things actually exist, so to speak, are on your screen. When they're being transmitted through the invisible, by the way, the invisible from a Wi-Fi router, a cell signal, whatever, they are not pictures, sound, movies. They are bits of data, bits of information, ones and zeros, if you will. And the only time they become any kind of reality is on the screen of your computer. We are spending most of our life proving, if you will, or saying we're proving the existence of things, the way things work, the amount of planets that are out there, the fact that there's planets, the fact that there might be space, that we're on a globe, all these things, using math, using numbers that truly don't actually exist. So what do you really believe in? What are we actually believing in? What is actually the truth? Yeah, I may be rambling a little bit here, but what is actually the truth? There's a lot of things we believe in simply because we've heard it long enough. We've been taught that, we were raised that way. It kind of gotten etched into our subconscious and become our perception, on and on and on. Do things really have any validity, any proof behind them? I find it hard pressed to actually find any real truth. Now, there are truths as we see them, truths as we perceive them. Our perceptions will drive what we see, and all the things that we see are caused by the mind or the brain to come into our existence to support what we believe. It's amazing what happens when you change your belief system, change your perception, either on purpose or somebody does it for you, how much different your world becomes. So what is really real? This table that I have my computer sitting on, is it real? Well, it feels real, right? If I slam my hand down on this table, it will hurt. Does it hurt because that's what I perceive is going to happen? Or is it actually there and solid because and cause pain because it's there and my hand hits it? I don't know. Who knows, right? And even so, let's talk about the table or things or anything that's in this reality. Told you I was going to go all over the place, mix it up, mash it up. Right? So everything that exists, so to speak, in this reality that we think is real, the funny thing is it's all made of the same stuff. We're all made of the same stuff. The pillow over there on my bed, the table in front of me, the computer, they're all made by many of the same elements. Of course, simply arranged in different patterns, different possibilities, different waves, wave functions, whatever, and then held together by who knows what, right? Could it be perception? Could it be an external source? I don't know. Who knows, right? I mean, we're really all made of the same stuff that other planets are, assuming planets are there. We're all made of the same stuff. But if you look at existence as it is, we have what we consider space. Not outer space, but space. If I look around my room right now, I mean, there's a bed and all these things that are in here, and there's a lot of what appears to be empty space. But do you really think it's empty space? I don't think so, right? Just as an example, we're all used to listening to the radio, using the internet, using our cell phones, using, and some of us like ham radio operators like myself, all kinds of devices and all kinds of things actually are perpetuating and flooding this space that's in between us. Every type of signal that we use on this planet, I'm using that term loosely, this reality is hovered and covered through every part of space that's available that we see around us. And so that space can never really be empty. Now, it may not have a thing in that space, but it is completely covered. That's one simple example. Speaking of realities, there could be many, or even endless amounts of realities, parallel dimensions, parallel universes, all residing in this space that surrounds us. Just a microcosm of a frequency different than our own. And the only reason we can see and experience this reality is probably because we are only tuned into this frequency. It is amazing to think about. I mean, there's all kinds of science that, well, of course, using math and all, but even experimentation that demonstrates the possibilities of other realities around us. And the other cool thing is, if you haven't looked at the double slit experiment, do yourself a favor and go look at it. But I'm going to summarize it a little bit, where the experiment is done by firing electrons at a board or piece of wood or some kind of barrier with two slits in it. What they expected to happen was that the patterns would, as it hit the wall behind it, would form within the same type of pattern of the slits that it went through. So in other words, there'd be two light slit patterns on the wall in the back. But what they found was interesting, especially when somebody observed it, perceived it, even if it was a camera. What happened was the electrons, once passing through those slits, created a wave-like function. And so the back wall got completely scattered and splattered with electrons and patterns, right? And so in short, what they've discovered is that there's just an endless amount of possibilities, all waiting for something to perceive them, act on them, so they can then stop and become something, an element, an atom. I find that really, really interesting, that this reality, as complex as it is, if that experiment is true, obviously I probably didn't go deep enough in that, you'll have to do your own research. But if that experiment is true, in this reality, with all the complexities that we can experience, is so astronomical, what would have caused all these possibilities to land just like they are, to become just like they are? Is it because we're here was the universe waiting, if you will, to create itself until somebody observed it, perceived it, and now that we're here, we're holding it all in place. Now, who knows who would have been the original, right? And there's a lot of ideas. However, the idea is that whatever created the enormous amount of possibilities to stop and assemble into this world as we know it, this place as we know it, is because we are all holding that perception to keep it the way it is. I find that incredibly amazing, to think that us human beings have maybe not created this world, this place, but we are simply holding those possibilities in one spot, or multiple spots, but you get my point. But what would happen if many of the humans became extinct, or we weren't here anymore, or we all simply came together and decided to create a whole new world and change our perception all in agreement? Would that be possible? Once again, we are still talking about believing in the unseen. Okay, we are still talking about believing in the unseen. Even though we see things, reality as we know it, we still have a total belief in the background of all these things that is completely unseen. And we can go really far with that even, right? Quantum science and quantum mechanics, we were discussing just a few minutes ago, is also delved into the depths of existence using the colliders and different things. And what they find, what they have reported to find, I should say, is that when you break down an atom into and keep going down to quarks, and I think they're even farther down than that, to some of the most microscopic elements there is, what they find is those elements are really just holding possibilities. Basically, they're empty space waiting for something to act on them. So if our cells, for example, are 99+% empty space, or maybe even completely empty space, just all the possibilities held together some strange way, do we really exist? Are we really here? Are we just here in some consciousness or some strange simulation or something like that, where we don't really exist, but we think we exist? And once again, if we think we exist and we feel like our existence means something, and that we got to go to work, we got to raise families, we got to raise kids, we got to do all kind of things, it all holds our perception in place. And what happens is, if you never change your perception, you never change your life, right? But once again, let's kind of go back to the original idea where you're talking about people arguing about things that make no sense. Because I can tell you, I've researched round earth, I've researched flat earth, I've researched simulation, every kind of reality that you can probably think about that's been talked about, I've looked into. Now, I'm no expert, don't get me wrong. But what I've found is, at the times I was studying those things, everything in my existence, in my day, was beginning to support what I had my focus on, what my perception was beginning to change to. So when I was studying flat earth, I was all of a sudden seeing all kinds of evidence, everything that was supporting the beginnings of a new belief, if you will. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't believe in 100% in any of them. But there's certainly good evidence for all of them. And when I started researching a simulation type reality, oh my gosh, the amount of things that were validating me every day were just popping into my life over and over every day, all the time. Once again, I don't know if I believe in any one of these 100% solid. But then when I was looking at an enclosed reality, like the idea of a flat plane with a firmament over it, sort of like a snow globe, if you will. Once again, all kinds of quote unquote evidence, things that support that movement towards a new belief, if you will, started coming into my life. I could not prove or disprove any one of those things. Because just like the double slit experiment, if I'm running an experiment or running evidence or research and trying to convince somebody that there is a flat earth, for example, then everything that I bring up will show up because it's my belief, influencing the experiment. That's why they try to take researchers out of experiments. You can look at that. You can find that. Because your belief system will encourage or influence the outcome. So they have to take the researcher out of it. Otherwise, whatever the scientist believes will likely manifest with the data in the experiment. Once again, I ask you, what do you really believe in? What do you think is true? How would you define truth? I define truth very simply. My truth is developed through time, experience, the way I was raised, what my parents taught me, what my religion taught me, what all my military time has taught me. And it's all wound up into this database of experience that gets wound and recorded into our subconscious. Our subconscious mind then runs that recording every day. 95% of the thoughts you had yesterday are the same ones you had today. And on we go. Our perception, based on those truths that we hold, will play out in our lives every time. I mean, I have so many clients that'll come to me, and I'm sure you guys have friends, say the same thing. I don't understand why I keep being attracted to the same type of stupid men or stupid women or the same kind of personalities and mates that I find myself interested in. And they don't realize that it's simply because the things that they've been taught to believe, sometimes outwardly, but mostly inwardly, subconsciously, are what plays out in your life. Taking all of this, or all of these ideas, and if we are simply believing in something that we can't see, experience, prove, and are only basing everything off of what we hold as truths, and everything is being held in place because of those truths, why can't we change that? Why would it be so hard to change our life in our own reality, at least, by rearranging those possibilities, changing those truths, working on different perceptions? It takes time, though. You can't think of something one time and your subconscious is reprogrammed. Sorry, not going to work. It takes time. It took you time to get fat. It's going to take you time to get thin. It takes you time to get strong. It takes you just as much time to get weak. It just takes time, and you have to do it on purpose. I mean, you can read all kind of research about that it takes like a certain amount of weeks or days at a baseline to reprogram a habit. So you have to actually work at it. So if you're 63 like I am, and you want to change perceptions that have been with you for 63 years, or a large part of those 63 years, will it actually happen before I exit this place? That's a question, right? I hope it doesn't take 63 years. However, I have done my fair share of changing my life. And sometimes you get the calling, sometimes you get the whamboozle. It just depends. One day you wake up and I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we're going to fix this, and you go after it. If the unseen is what is affecting our life, why don't we change the unseen? Why don't we rearrange the possibilities, the ways, functions, right? The potential. Let's all put our minds to that and create a better version of who you are. And it really doesn't matter that you're not going to be competing with anybody. It's really competing with yourself to become a different version of you. And if you have dreams of becoming a millionaire, a billionaire, a talk show host, whatever, that's not going to happen unless you change your perceptions. Your belief in the unseen needs to change. If the unseen affects us, then let's affect the unseen. Why not? There's nothing wrong with becoming affluent, right? Successful. Becoming just awesome version of yourself. Because we are all connected to the same sea. We're all little droplets in the sea of consciousness, universal consciousness. And what affects one affects the other. So when you grow and you flourish and you become somebody magnificent, then you are affecting the sea. If you just mosey along, one person can't make a difference, well, that's not true. Why don't you look at Martin Luther King's story? 50 plus years later, we are still massively celebrating what one man did. Every year, city after city after city piles people together and celebrates Martin Luther King. One man. One person, one woman, one man can make a difference, and we should. Let's use the universe against itself. Let's dig into our own reality, our own perception, rewrite the code, change the ones and zeros, and make it X's. Let's make it something totally different. Why not? We can create. We are creators. So let's create a life that we want to live. Let's create a life that supports our family. Even if you don't do it for you, do it for somebody else. Find out what your why is. Is it for your wife? Is it for your husband? For your kids? Is it for your church? What is it that's going to drive you? Because you got to find some kind of motivation. If perceptions are simply possibilities and perception, I said that twice, didn't I? If perceptions are simply derived from nothingness, if you will, then let's give nothingness something to do. Let's use it. Let's use a mirror effect. And let's change the vision that we see in our lives to what we want it to be, to see. Wow, I went all over the place, didn't I? It all started with globe earth and flat earth. But it all kind of winds together. I did promise you that I would mash it up. Metaphysical, spiritual, and science. And I will leave you with that, because our life is in our own hands. There's nobody coming to save us. There's no escape route. It's just us. And we need to be the best version of ourselves. We need to become all we can be. Because if this is the only life we get, we better make something of it. And it's as short as it can be. Let's all strive to make a difference, change the nothingness into somethingness. I would love to hear from you about this kind of stuff. You can reach me on my contact page at lifebymazak.com. That's LIFEBYMAZAK.com. And look on my contact page. I look forward to hearing from you, and you will hear from me again. Stay strong and live your life.